Welcome to the 5th annual AmtrakGuy365 Q&A video. This one's thankfully coming out much sooner than the last one, which came out months after the announcement video, so hooray, applause, clap. In this Q&A, as you probably know, I also accepted comments on a post from my Instagram, so there'll be some questions from there mixed in with the regular YouTube ones. Anyway, let's get started. If your questions weren't answered this time around, there'll always be another Q&A at the very least next year, or even another one whenever I feel like it. And as usual, if I mess up pronouncing your name or username, I apologize, and before we get into the actual questions, I'll answer some commonly asked ones first. Is the Marysville Railroad San Juan Crossover still happening? As of now, I would say yes. Progress unfortunately has been very slow. The first episode has been scripted and filmed, it's just a matter of getting the character lines in. If anything changes in my plans regarding the crossover, I'll make some kind of post about it, so sorry about that. Will Engines of New York Central still be happening? So a bit after I made the series announcement, YouTube was being really picky about reused content. So in other words, using other people's pictures and videos in your own video, even if it was fair use, or you got permission to do so. They were either demonetizing people, flagging their videos, and they'd end up getting removed or even get a copyright strike. Since then, it doesn't really seem like a problem anymore, so I would say Engines of New York Central will be happening. When, you may ask? I'll give a rough estimate and say maybe within the next month or two. But no guarantees. But it will be happening. What is the fate of the Marysville, City and Hiawatha Trainz series? Based on my current plans and not really wanting to have multiple Trainz series going on at once for the time being, I wouldn't really anticipate a revival or any new content from those series. It would really just be too much work for just me to handle, and my more recent videos take a lot of time to make as it is. So for now, regarding Trainz series, I'm going to be focusing on the Granger Rail Tales. What do you use for your videos? Some of that equipment though will be subject to change at some point, and whatever that's the case, you can check the description of this video or my channel about section for any updates. Now let's get into some actual questions. Santa Fe 669 asks, hello! Favorite vets unit or first responders unit? Well, you're probably expecting me to say Amtrak 42, and while that is true, I honestly think it's a mix between 42 and CSX 911. I do like both of those engines quite a bit. Opinions on the 3985 retirement. It kinda stinks we won't be seeing it run. It is an engine I like, but whatever happens, happens pretty much. When are you coming back to Chicago?
Well, I'm really not at liberty to say.
Oh.
Look! The stop sign has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 glorious sides. This stop sign is an octagon!
Super Mario 415 asks, what kind of train simulator do you prefer? So if this is the choice between N3V Games' Trainz with a Z and Dovetail Games' Train Simulator, I'm gonna have to go with Train Simulator.
What?
Now that might be a bit weird seeing as most of my simulator-based content is in Trainz with a Z, but I'll explain. So basically, I prefer Train Simulator just because I actually play it, if you will. Trainz, I mainly use it as a tool or utility for videos, and I don't really find myself running free roam scenarios or sessions or whatever scripted scenarios. With Train Simulator, I actually find myself doing free roam scenarios, setting them up, or running in the cab view for 30 minutes to an hour or more in quick drive, and doing a lot of the career or standard scenarios for routes. Really, I'm just kind of basing this on playability, as in, do I actually play the game, and not just use it as a resource or tool for video. I mean, while I do make plenty of videos using Train Simulator, I actually play it when I'm not working on a video using it or whatever. However, I will give Trainz with a Z much credit for having a much more user-friendly modification system using Content Manager, and along with the route builder, but basically I prefer Train Simulator and Trainz with a Z for different reasons. But if I had to pick one simulator based on playability, it would really have to be Train Simulator. Basically kind of oh, you're stranded on a desert island, what game would you rather have with you? I would pick Train Simulator. Heritage Unit 1943 asks, why do you like Amtrak so much? Well, Amtrak was a railroad I grew up around just about my entire life pretty much, and plus early on as a kid, and since then I've ridden Amtrak trains more times than I can really count or remember. So it's partially nostalgia, but also in retrospect I like a lot of things about the railroad. Whether that be the paint schemes, horns, passenger cars, routes and scenery that you can see, the history, the engines, rarest catch you've seen. Rarest catch is a bit subjective based on what other people consider rare, but to me, I think my rarest catch is Algoma Central 106 leading the CN Santa train. I don't really think that's something I'll see recreated anytime soon, if ever. You want some candy? I appreciate the offer, but I was always told never to take candy from strangers. Danny P asks, what's your favorite Amtrak model? F40PH. Favorite kind of train to ride? Amtrak, particularly the Blue Water. Favorite train sim game? Like I mentioned before, I prefer one sim over the other depending on what I'm doing with it, but like I said, if I had to really pick one, it'd definitely be Dovetail Games' Train Simulator. Favorite engines of Amtrak video you made? Probably the Acela one. The editing was a bit better compared to the rest, I thought. Each one has its merits, I think, but as usual, favorites are subject to change. Nickel Plate Roadman asks, so far, what's your favorite steam locomotive and excursion as of now? Pure Marquette 1225. Unitedforever asks, layout update when? To be honest, I really haven't gotten a whole lot done on the layout since the last update. I mean, I have gotten new locomotives and rolling stock and stuff like that, and I made an Instagram post about it, but really haven't made a whole lot of progress on it. And with the layout update, I try to fit in a good amount of stuff so people can really see major progress instead of itsy bitsy little pieces. I mean, honestly, I never really thought people liked my layout updates that much and they really wanted to see them. I always thought they were kind of just like, eh. I mean, it's not really the most realistic, but I mean, I have fun doing it, but I didn't really think the layout updates were really that popular, I guess. So, as to when a layout update might come out, I'm not really sure. I mean, I could probably do one mainly focused on the locomotives and freight cars that I got, and the little bit of scenery work I've done, but maybe within the next few months or so, I'll try to get a layout update then. Thoughts on Train Sim World 2020? I think it's a really nice looking game. I mean, granted, you need a pretty good PC to run it, but overall, I think it's pretty fun. I mean, usually I kind of prefer the more arcadey style of Train Simulator or Trains with a Z, but I do think Train Sim World has its kind of unique qualities to it, and I think it's a pretty fun experience. Do you like green eggs and ham?
Maybe.
Railfan Vlogs asks, favorite Beatles member and song? My favorite member is definitely Paul McCartney. Now, for an all-time favorite Beatles song, that's a really hard question for me. In the last Q&A, I did list off my favorites from each album, but if I really had to pick a favorite or go-to Beatles song, I would probably have to say Twist and Shout. Your thoughts on Malaysian railways and locomotives? I don't really know anything about railways in Malaysia, but from what I've seen in pictures and videos, it seems pretty cool, an interesting mix of equipment. Where did the inspiration for engines of Amtrak come from? It mainly came from just really wanting to do something different on the channel, and Coaster Fan 2105's Train Talk series partially gave me an idea to do something about Amtrak locomotives. San Diego Railfan 399 asked, legit! What are your future plans for your HL layout, and what advice would you give to people trying to make their own HL scale layout? Really, I'm just kind of working bit by bit to just getting it done and having a pretty decent looking layout that I'm happy with. It might not be the most realistic, but at least I'm having fun with it, I guess. As for like advice on newcomers to the hobby or people who haven't built their own HL scale layout, honestly I would say start out with something small like a 4x8 really. At least in terms of HL scale, that size may vary based on the scale of your layout, but for HL scale I'd say definitely start out small, because if you start it with something really big, unless you have some sort of past experience or some behind the scenes knowledge, if you will, from someone who has experience, you're gonna probably be overwhelmed if you have like a big whole 30 by 40 around the room, around the walls, whatever, layout, and you're gonna be working on that forever, and considering it's your first time, you may mess some things up and then you might get discouraged if you keep messing things up as you go. But I would just say start out small so you can get an idea if this is something you really want to do, really want to make an investment in or whatever. But I would really just say have some fun with it. You don't really have to be focused on making it the most realistic layout ever, and if no one thinks it's good, then it's not good at all. No, I mean, if you think it's good, then it's good by your standards. I mean, really just have fun with it. To start off with, maybe just model something you see on a daily basis since it's something you know best. Sammy Likes Trains asks, how do you feel about the East Broad Top being restored? Honestly, I think it's really cool to see something like that restored to operation, like lots of history, heritage, and it's narrow gauge mixed in with some dual gauge in there. Really, I'm just excited to see it getting up and running again. Carolina Southern Railfan asks, what is your favorite steam and diesel locomotive outside of North America? Steam-wise, I'd say a Japanese National Railway C62-462, and for a diesel, a British Railways Class 56. What do you think is the biggest blunder in railroad history? I'm not really an expert in something like this, but I guess the two that maybe stand out to me, I mean they're kind of obvious, but are the demise of the Milwaukee Road along with its Pacific extension, and just the overall roughly handled Penn Central. Like, despite their problems though, I do like the Milwaukee Road and the Penn Central as railroads. I mean, I'd say some steam turbine locomotives were pretty rough and expensive blunders for certain railroads as well, but I just think the Milwaukee Road deal and the whole Penn Central thing, I just think that kind of overshadows those experiments. Of the Marysville Railroad Stories, City Branchline, Hiawatha Trilogy, and Granger Rail Tales, which is your favorite? Like the Engines of Amtrak episodes, I think they all have their merits. Like Marysville, it was an attempt to be funny. City Branchline, I was going for kind of a vintage, kind of steam, small town feel, I guess. And Hiawatha Trilogy, well, that was another attempt at being quote-unquote funny and just working with a smaller cast, I guess. And with Granger Rail Tales, well, who knows really what's to come with it. I'm kind of going for a similar feel as City Branchline, but to a much higher quality. Now for my favorite, as in like maybe which one I enjoyed making the most, I'd really have to go with Granger Rail Tales. I mean, while there's only one episode, I had a lot of fun making that first episode. I think it turned out really good, and I think it's honestly the best of all my Trainz series episodes. A close runner-up would be the City Branchline stories though. Like, don't get me wrong, I like all of the series that I've made, but those are the two that kind of just stand out the most to me. What is your favorite of the Big Four railways in Britain? The London, Midland, and Scottish. LHS Boy asks, what is your favorite video game? This is a hard question. This is another if I really had to pick one kind of question, but if I really had to pick one, probably be Team Fortress 2. Aside from TF2 though, some other games I like, not really in any particular order, are Super Mario Galaxy, Half-Life, Super Mario 64, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Sonic Generations, Garry's Mod, Super Mario Sunshine, Kirby Squeak Squad, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, Sonic Colors, and Super Mario Odyssey. Pretty much I'm a big fan of most Mario, Sonic, and Kirby games. Favorite European diesel locomotive, not British. The DB Class V200. Putis. Z-Mark Anthony asks, are you going to run or host a new Discord server? At the moment, probably not. Favorite era of railroads? I'm pretty much into anything from like 1900 and beyond, but I do like the 1980s in terms of railroads. Not just in terms of the United States, but globally, there still seemed to be a good mix of new and old motive power, and the variety, at least for the US, still seemed pretty high. I mean, heck, some countries were still using steam locomotives in the 80s. I also do like the 1950s and 60s quite a bit. Basically just the whole transition kind of deal, really. Do you play Halo Reach? I do not.
We gotta talk again, bruh.
Hey, Vsauce.
Michael Susans asks, to AmtrakGuy365, will you ever do a video talking about the USRA, its nationalization experiment, as well as the USRA standard range of locomotives in the future? That's actually a pretty good idea for a video. Pretty big brain move there.
This is big brain time.
So, maybe. Thanks for the idea, I will note that down. CNSD75I asks, Olive Garden or Car A Bass? Mountain Ridge Films asks, have you ever planned on doing a video on your hometown area's railroading history? I actually did back in like 2015, but it's been long since removed since it was not very good. Otherwise, I have considered doing another one for several years now, but I just never really got around to it, to be honest. What do you think the new decade has in store for you creatively? Personally, myself, I think it's going to be a decade of massive improvement. One thing I hope to improve on even more so is like my commentary videos, like trying out new editing styles, video formats, stuff like that. That's one thing I'm also going to be trying to focus on for this year in 2020, As you've seen with the DT&I Henry Ford video, CN logo analysis, Railroad vs. Railway, and even the Trains of Half-Life and Team Fortress 2 videos, I'd like to keep making more videos like that which focus on more obscure and unique topics related to the railroad and trains. In the near future, do you plan on taking any trips out of state to purely Railfan? I haven't got any plans right now, but that is something I would like to do. Have you ever considered doing a Let's Play type of video series on a particular game for this channel? While that would be cool, I think, I'm not sure if that's something everyone would be really super interested in. I mean, if it were a train simulator, sure, but any other game, I'm not really sure myself. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Would you be interested in a Let's Play series of some kind? If so, what kind of game or games? Whatever. Oh wait, there's a little bit more to the comment. Let me see here.
You just got sanded.
Toronto Transit Channel asks, what are your personal goals for this year? Well, I partly answered that in the previous comment, but some other goals I have are just being more consistent with uploading, finishing a handful of games I haven't beaten or completed yet, and just maybe improving my drawing skills, I guess. What is the worst Amtrak trip you've ever taken? I can't really say I've had a bad trip or experience with Amtrak really, knock on wood. Only more so just an interesting experience. Back in I think 2011, I went to Chicago and our train had to be rerouted due to washouts and flooding that had resulted from a big rainstorm that morning. Other than that, nothing really bad or negative for me when it's come to Amtrak trips. What areas have you traveled to outside of
Pure Michigan?
And in which one is your favorite and why? I've traveled to Fostoria, Ohio, Chesterton and Michigan City, Indiana, and I've been to Chicago more times than I can really count. I've also been to Galesburg, Union, Mendota, and Rochelle, all in Illinois, and out of everything I mentioned, I'd probably say my favorite is Chicago for the city itself, and Chesterton for the trains. Chicago, I love the city and its history along with its extensive railroad background, plus Chesterton, I just found enjoyable for the constant stream of trains, accessible and easy areas to Railfan. And I got to see Amtrak there as opposed to somewhere like Fostoria, but don't get me wrong, Fostoria is quite an enjoyable place to Railfan, pretty much back-to-back CSX and NS trains. Favorite fruit? Tangerine or banana? Rank electric, steam, and diesel as traction sources, and why you chose to rank them that way. From favorite to least favorite, I'd say steam, diesel, electric. I mean, I like all forms of rail transport, but I just like certain ones more than others, I guess. Steam, I like the sounds, the sizes, the history, nostalgia, and pretty much everything about them, really. Diesels are just as good too, love the horns some locomotives have, their sleekness and speed, streamlining, but they just don't really maybe have the magic that steam does to me, because, you know, everyone's like, oh, steam seems like it's alive, and I feel like that's maybe something that diesel locomotives kind of lack compared to steam engines, but still, don't get me wrong, I love diesel locomotives. I enjoy electric power like high-speed trains, interurbans, trams, stuff like that, like rail, but I ranked it last though because I guess I'm like the least invested in it, like I don't find myself researching it in my free time that often. But like I said before, I enjoy all forms of traction equally pretty much. And thank you for your questions and nice comment. The Churchill of the LMS asks, favorite US state, not Michigan. I'd have to go with either Maine or Massachusetts even though I haven't been to either. The scenery, climate, and trains all seem great to me along with the history involved with the East Coast and just kind of the general like Cape Cod architecture style. I really like that a lot. Though if we are talking states that I've been to, I'd have to say Illinois because of the trains and nostalgia of going there over the course of many years. Union Pacific or CSX? CSX, but I do like both railroads. Have you heard of or watched a show called Girls und Panzer? Yup, I have. It's a pretty enjoyable show. I like it. I'd like my beans back.
Nope.
Pittsburgh Line Railfan asks, which do you prefer, the original F40PH or F40PHM-2? The original F40PH, but at the same time I really do like the PHM-2 variant, especially the original Metra paint colors. Favorite boxcar livery? It's a mix between Chessie System, Grand Trunk Western, and Port Huron and Detroit Railroad. Favorite industry to see trains at? I'd have to say grain elevators. Riley Railfanning Aviation and Trucking asks, N-scale or HO scale? HO scale. What's your favorite type of steam locomotive? Pretty big fan of 462 specifics, whatever you want to call them. Streamliner or heavyweight passenger car? It kind of depends on the paint scheme that's on them sometimes, but I think I lean a bit more towards like streamlined, lightweight cars really. Patrick Fox asks, if you had to go railfanning outside the US and Canada, where would you go and why? I'd really like to go to the UK, Japan, France, Germany, and Switzerland. As for why, I think it's just a really cool idea of seeing something completely foreign and the new trains of varying sizes, shapes, colors, stuff like that. Plus the scenery in some places you just really won't see anywhere else. Garrett the Train Guy asks, what is your favorite articulated steam engine? You know, I'm not really that invested in articulated steam or really big steam engines for that matter, but I do like C&O 1601. For that matter, it's one of the few I've actually seen in person, but it's at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan, and every time I've gone there I've always made time to check it out and take a few pictures. Trainman777 asks, favorite steam locomotive from the SP? The GS6 definitely. What's your opinion on the GP30? Honestly, I really like the GP30. It's pretty compact and the taller roof just adds some cool little character to it, I think. What was your first model train? Well, my first experience with an electric train set was a promotional Detroit Red Wings set that looks something like this. But in terms of like a typical starter set model train set in HO scale, whatever, it was either the Bachmann Chattanooga set or Challenger set with this UPF7. Lightning Dash 3804 asks, how do you feel about the Amtrak Chargers replacing the P42s? Seeing as the Chargers have already replaced P42s on my local Amtrak train, I can actually safely give my opinion on this. While I think the Chargers are like fine locomotives and all, I just prefer the P42s for their looks and just the nostalgia of seeing them for so many years, and it'll be sad to see them go in my opinion whenever they do, but then again, I mean, they are nearing 30 years old in service, and just kind of saying that, it seems really surreal to me. One thing I'll add though is that the Chargers are definitely way quieter than the P42s. Like, they obviously lack that distinct P42 kind of GE chugging noise whenever they're departing in like Notch 8 or whatever. Like, it's not really a complaint or compliment, but it's just something I found kind of interesting about the Chargers. Mining railroads or logging railroads? Logging railroads. If you could bring back any abandoned railroad line, what would it be? A few I have in mind are the CN Romeo subdivision, the abandoned portion of the CNO's Port Huron subdivision and line to Bad Axe from Port Huron, plus the abandoned portion of the Port Huron and Detroit Railroad. Can a Gevo run on spaghetti?
No.
Beans, asks, what was the first train you ever filmed? In 2012, I recorded my first train using my Nintendo 3DS. Prior to that, I really hadn't considered filming the trains I saw, to be honest. I just usually thought it was just cool to see them in the first place and never really bothered to record them until then. Do you have model trains? Yep, I do. Here's some of my favorite models that I own. And you can also check out my series of HO scale layout updates as well. Name Can't Tell You asks, Nintendo DS or Nintendo 3DS? Probably gonna have to go with the Nintendo 3DS. While I do have an equal amount of nostalgia for the DS, definitely, I've had two. One of them broke because I dropped it down the stairs, as I'm sure every DS owner did at one point. Well, I think just the 3DS's compatibility with DS games, the camera and stop motion editor, AR cards, and the various extra little features were pretty cool and memorable. Games like Super Mario 3D Land and Mario Kart 7 were a lot of fun as well. I never really got into the later 3DS games because by the time I got my 3DS, I was starting to get out of kind of like console and handheld gaming and kind of go more towards like PC gaming, so I never really got to experience a whole lot of the newer 3DS games, but even still, I just think I kind of prefer the 3DS. The only downside with it though was just not being able to play like Game Boy Advance games on it like you could with the original DS. I think that's one of the big kind of positives to the original DS, that you could have that backwards compatibility with older GBA games, and I have quite a few of them, so it's pretty nice to play them. But excluding that, I'd have to go with the Nintendo 3DS. Do you like Super Smash Bros, and what's your favorite character in the game? Yes, I've actually played every single Smash Bros game in the series as a matter of fact up to now with Ultimate, and as of Smash Ultimate, I usually play as Kirby, Sonic, Marth, and Lucina, Mario, Joker, Luigi, Pichu, and Link. SD40-2 or SD45-2? SD40-2. ATSF or SP Railroad? ATSF, but SP is still cool all the same. Oh my gosh, look behind you! What's behind me? The Long Island Railfan asked, what is your favorite song by Johnny Cash? The Ballet of Ira Hayes or I Walk the Line? What extinct steam locomotive would you say from the Scrapper's Torch? The New York Central Hudson. EMD or GE? I honestly don't really prefer one over the other, so I'm just gonna have to say both. I like both companies really, I think both of their locomotives are just fine. Would you railfan the Long Island Railroad someday? If I have a chance to go out east, I definitely would like to check it out. What is your favorite fallen flag? I'd say Grand Trunk Western, but if you consider the fact that it's technically a company on paper, then my other answer would be New York Central. And you have a good day as well. The Floridian Railfan asks, have you heard about the word?
Have you heard the word?
A Genesis engine asks, what do you think of the old P40 DCs with strobes? Honestly, I think they're pretty cool. I think they give the engine a little bit more character, really.
Legit!
What's your opinion on BC Rail? I like it. I love the K5Ls and the K5Hs on their engine. I love the paint schemes, and really I've just seen a handful of B-Coal engines over the years. Are there any engines that you would like to see in the future? Well, I don't really have enough fingers or toes for that matter to really count all the engines I'd like to see in the future. But I guess really just to name a few is really like any engine on the Northeast Corridor, the engines on the Strasburg Railroad, the GP30s on the Indiana Northeastern Railroad, Grand Trunk Western 6325, and those are just a couple I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, if I could, I would love to see all the locomotives in the world, but that would be challenging to say the least. Do you plan on visiting any narrow gauge railways? I actually have been to the Huckleberry Railroad in Flint, Michigan several times, which is a 3-foot gauge line, plus the Cedar Point and Lake Erie Railroad if you count that one, but I would like to visit more narrow gauge railroads in the future. We're a great big rolling railroad.
Hear that diesel engine's power.
Oregon Western Railroad Productions asks, favorite JonTron video? Probably plug-and-play consoles? There's just a lot of like quotable and classic JonTron moments in it, plus the countless number of like YouTube poops on it, and I just think it really makes it funny, and I just think it's classic JonTron, really. I mean, some of the other ones I really like are the Flex Tape one, or the Zoo Race. I really like that one. That one's another classic. Old Square Wheels T asks, why did you stop making Trainz Thomas content? I kinda just lost interest in making Thomas stuff in Trainz with a Z. After the Percy's Big Mistake remake, and then my last Thomas-based video, the Neon Genesis Evangelion Thomas anime opening parody, I decided at that time to just kind of focus on like finishing up Engines of Amtrak and just really start thinking of entirely new and more unique video ideas, I guess. I mean, I still like Thomas, but I am just really only into like seasons 1 to about 10 nowadays. Some of the CGI stuff like seasons 17 to 21 I think are pretty good, but beyond that point, like what the show is like right now at the moment, I'm just not really into it, not really interested, the whole big world, big adventure thingy and Thomas traveling the world or whatever. I just haven't really watched any of the episodes. It just doesn't really appeal to me anymore, I guess. I mean, will there be one-off Thomas Trainz with a Z content at some point? Maybe, but I don't really plan on resuming making like regular, kind of monthly or whatever Thomas Trainz content stuff, so sorry about that. Favorite railroad? What was your earliest memory of seeing a locomotive? Probably about 2005, I can recall seeing a Phase 4 or 3 Amtrak Genesis unit on the Texas Eagle. Where's Cass City Branchline? Have you ever seen a derailment? Okay, well, I haven't seen a derailment take place. I've seen the cleanup, aftermath, whatever you want to call it, of a derailment. Back on June 28th in 2019, 40 cars derailed in the St. Clair River Tunnel, and I went ahead and got some pictures and took a short little video of 2 engines backing down the grade to pull out a string of cars still left in the tunnel. And luckily,
No one was hurt.
Mary Byland /PRR Peanut asks, have you seen an abandoned line before? I have. Here's the C&O's Old Port Huron subdivision. New York Central 20th Century Limited or Amtrak Avalia Liberty? Honestly, probably gonna have to go with the 20th Century Limited here. I think the Amtrak one looks fine, but I kind of always thought it looked like a life-size toy train or something like that. I don't know, just the colors and it just everything looks kind of short about it. I mean, I think it looks fine. I just prefer the 20th Century Limited when you're comparing the two, I guess, if you really can. I don't know. But if I had to pick one, I'd have to go with the 20th Century Limited. If you had to own a railway that exists, what would it be and why? Either Amtrak, since it's my favorite railroad, or maybe Lake State Railway, since it's my favorite short line, and they're expanding quite a bit throughout Michigan here. Would you rather have a futuristic logo like the Canadian National one, or vintage logos that are historical? Probably more futuristic logos. I just think they mesh better with the way everything else is designed right nowadays, with kind of the design trends being mainly like minimalist and not so much like gradients or bevels or embosses or whatever symbols, things like that. I mean, I still like historical symbols and logos, whatever, but I just kind of prefer the design of the CN Worm or Amtrak's kind of wave logo or whatever. Grand Trunk Western or Pure Marquette? Grand Trunk Western, but don't get me wrong, I love the Pure Marquette too. Trainman700 asks, do you like anime? If so, what is your favorite? Yep, my favorite is Eurocamp. ATSF is yes asks, Super Mario Bros. 3 or Super Mario World? So this depends on the version. If it's Super Mario Bros. 3 from the All-Stars collection on the SNES, then I'd pick Mario Bros. 3. But if we're comparing the NES version of SMB 3 to Super Mario World, then I'd say Super Mario World. Joel Bjornsson asks, do you listen to Michael Jackson? I do, he's actually one of my favorite musical artists of all time, as a matter of fact. My favorite songs from him are either Beat It or his duet with Paul McCartney on The Girl Is Mine. Shortline Gaming asks, what are your favorite tourist railroads that operate steam? In no really particular order, I'd have to say Strasburg, Steamtown, Huckleberry Railroad, and the Steam Railroading Institute. The only ones I've been to on that list though are the Huckleberry and the Steam Railroading Institute. Stephen Hawley asks, are you excited about the East Broadtop being revived? Like I said before, I am. I think it's really cool just to see another narrow gauge railroad be put back into service, let alone one with a bunch of steam engines. Will you ever have another Discord server? Probably not, sorry. Have you ever played Duke Nukem 3D or any other early FPS games? I haven't played any of the Duke Nukem games, but I have played Half-Life along with its expansions Opposing Force and Blue Shift when it comes to early FPS games. Half-Life is by far one of my all-time favorite video games, as you might know based on the Trains of Half-Life video, plus all the sound effects from the games I've used in my videos throughout the years. Do you like trains outside of the United States? If so, which? Yeah, I'm pretty interested in like British steam locomotives and Japanese trains in general. Really though, if you show me trains from any foreign country, I'm probably gonna think it's cool. If you could commission K&L for one engine, what would you do and why? A Grand Trunk Western J3A.
What the fuck?
No, not that J3A. This J3A. Because it's one of my favorite Pacifics, and there really isn't much steam or transition era GTW content out there for trains with a Z. If not that, then a New York Central Mohawk, since the one I know of is pretty old, or the Streamlined Mercury, since New York Central steam is always nice. Nathan CSXD Benedetto 21 asks, what is your favorite train movie? To be honest, I don't really have one. I've never really been into movies, like, at all, I guess. Like, I just rather watch YouTube or documentaries, really. I mean, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I mean, I thought Unstoppable was decent despite its inaccuracies. I mean, if you guys want to, I mean, recommend me some train movies down in the comments. I mean, I've heard Emperor of the North, that one seems like it's pretty good, so I've heard. I mean, literally every rail fan seems like they've watched it except me. But I guess just recommend me some train movies and I can maybe give you guys a better answer on that. What videos do you regret making? I don't think I really regret making any one certain video or series, I guess. I mean, sure, I regret some dumb mistakes.
We don't make mistakes, we just have happy accidents.
Like incorrect pronunciations, some not so great thumbnails, or just general errors in videos, especially those seen in Engines of Amtrak. I say that because it's being seen by so many people. Though I do appreciate people correcting any info that might have been wrong or whatever else. Otherwise, I mean, since I started my channel, I've removed quite a few old videos that I didn't like or just didn't really think fit my channel anymore. Though I guess if there's maybe one, I guess, regret or thing I wish I really maybe didn't make, was a video series I planned on continuing back around 2015 called 10 Fascinating Railroad Facts. Retrospectively, it turned out pretty bleh. It wasn't really that great. Editing was kind of dumb and the humor was kind of bad, just bad. And I think the concept would have just gotten old or repetitive to continue making it if I really ended up doing it. The way I see it, some of the
Happy accidents
is just signs that I've gotten better at making videos over the years and just kind of seeing how much I've improved. I mean, just take a look at Engines of Amtrak. The early episodes, the narration was ass! I mean, the audio is just pretty bad. I mean, I was just talking into my camcorder and I thought that was good. But, I mean, really, when you compare something like Engines of Amtrak from back in like 2018 and 2017, and then you compare to what my audio is nowadays and my narration with my commentary videos, It just shows you how much I've improved, so like, I don't really regret those
happy accidents.
I just see it as a way that, well, I've improved over the years, so I guess like I said before, I don't really regret making any videos, or I guess any series, I guess. When you aren't spotting trains, what do? Usually I'm gaming, because that's what epic gamers like me do. Love me do. Apart from gaming, I'm probably either working on videos, reading, drawing, or watching YouTube. Some favorite YouTubers of mine are, in no particular order, Distant Signal, Markiplier, Ant Dude, Vinesauce Vinny and Joel, Uncle Dane, El Toro 64 Russ, Super Mega, Vsauce, Too Mad, Big Joey Slapnuts, Linus Tech Tips, PewDiePie, Gus Johnson, Did You Know Gaming, Half as Interesting, Cinemassacre, aka Angry Video Game Nerd, Scott the Waz, Tetrabit Gaming, Pyrocynical, Polyphonic, Jameski, RT Game, Nakey Jakey, Jax Films, Doug, Lazy Purple, The Completionist, Tom Scott, Jaden Animations, Nathaniel Bandy, Wendover Productions, Fab4 Archivist, and Jacksepticeye. Alternatively, I'll go back and watch re-uploads of Attica streams and classic Filthy Frank and Kitty0706 videos. Thoughts on the new CP Heritage units? I definitely really do like them, definitely some of my favorite Heritage units now. What would you do if GT came back? I'd be really happy and definitely interested to see what modern GTW power would look like. I mean, a Tier 4 Grand Trunk Western Gevo, imagine that. The Winnipeg Railfan asks, do you think CN should attempt designing heritage units, such as one in a GTW or NAR scheme? I think that would be really cool, honestly, something like a Gevo or whatever unit painted up in a GTW or CNR Maple Leaf scheme or something like that. I'd really love to see that in real life. Favorite album or albums and or songs from the Beatles' solo careers? It'd be hard to pick one definitive best album out of all of them since each of the Beatles had their own unique sound, so I'll just pick from each one. From Paul McCartney's solo career, I like McCartney 1 and McCartney 2. London Town, Red Rose Speedway, and Flowers in the Dirt. From George Harrison's solo career, I like Cloud 9, Somewhere in England, and All Things Must Pass. From Ringo Starr's solo career, I like Ringo, Goodnight Vienna, and Ringo's Rotogravure. And then from John Lennon's solo career, I like Milk and Honey, Double Fantasy, and Walls and Bridges. If you could resurrect one defunct railway or resume production of a past diesel locomotive series, which railway or engine would that be? New York Central, and then either the Alco PA or C636. As I may be passing through America World this summer, what railfanning locations or historic sites should I stop at? And is there currently any sales at stuff at Kroger's that I should try to buy with Canadian Tire money? As for historical sites, here's a list of places I think you should stop by at. And as for railfanning locations, I don't know too many places outside of Michigan, but the ones I can think of off the top of my head are the Chicagoland area, Chesterton, Indiana, and Fostoria, Ohio, and those are really just based off of my personal experiences, so you might want to ask around or kind of Google some other locations. In Michigan, I know Durand is a fun spot, Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids, Holly, plus areas in and around Detroit. You can see everything from Amtrak, Canadian National, Canadian Pacific, Norfolk Southern, and CSX. As for your question about Kroger's sales,
No.
when's a good time for me to come down to Saginaw and steal back my Sioux SD40 6400? I told you in the old Discord server I was going to steal the LSRC 6305. Just wait, one day you're going to visit their yard and maybe, or maybe not notice,
a missing SD40. Just know, it may or may not have been me.
Stephen KC Railfan asks, thoughts on the CP SD70 ACUs? I think they're pretty cool looking, pretty sharp looking locomotives if I do say so myself, and like I mentioned earlier, I really do like the CP Heritage variants as well. What got you to like both trains and video games? I got into trains through Thomas and Friends along with VHS tapes and DVDs like There Goes a Train, I Love Big Trains, I Love Toy Trains, Awesome Trains, and I Want to Be a Train Engineer. Plus, having ridden Amtrak more times than I can count over the years since I was a kid, that also played a role in liking trains as well. As for video games, the first video game I ever played was Super Mario 64 on the N64. My cousins, grandma, and I all played a lot of Super Nintendo or SNES games like Super Mario World, Super Mario Bros. All-Stars, Mario Paint, Super Mario Kart, and the Donkey Kong Country games. From those, I eventually got into other systems like the GameCube, DS, Wii, 3DS, and eventually PC gaming. Safe to say I've been a gamer all my life. Favorite NS rebuild, the SD60E, BN or ATSF. If I had to choose one, Burlington Northern, but I do like Santa Fe a lot as well.
Do you like Pokemon? So apart from Pokemon Stadium on the N64 and Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team on the DS and Pokemon Shield on the Nintendo Switch, I haven't really played many of the games or really got invested into the franchise. Based on my recent experiences with Shield though, I think it's pretty fun, but Pokemon just really isn't my favorite game series. I'd rather just play something on the computer or play like a Mario or Sonic game or something. WMGI Industries Productions asks, what is your favorite commuter railroad? Metra or New Jersey Transit? Northwestern Iowa Rail asks, favorite 484? Seeing as I already mentioned an SPGS6, my other pick would be an NNW J-Class or Milwaukee Road S3. Thoughts on UP3985's retirement? Like I mentioned way earlier, I do think it sucks it won't likely ever run again, but it's out of my control obviously, so I'm not really too bothered by it really. I mean, at the very least, it's still gonna be preserved and people are gonna be able to see it. GE or EMD? Again, as I said before, I don't really prefer one over the other. I mean, I think both have nice locomotive designs. That Scrapped A1 asks, out of the Big Four's roster, which locomotive of each region are your favorites? For LMS it's the 4F, LNER is the C1, GWR is the Castle class, and for Southern it's the H4. Wait, wrong Southern Railway.
Hilarious, that original.
Okay, for real, it's the West Country class. If you were going to England just for train spotting, which loco would you like to see? Which railway would you like to go to see it? Well, if you're going to England for train spotting, I think it's probably an unwritten rule you have to see Flying Scotsman or Mallard, so I'd have to say those two, but I also thought the West Somerset Railway would be cool, or the Tally-Flynn Railway. What's your favorite passenger diesel that isn't on Amtrak's roster? The F40PHM-2. How are you today?
Very good!
Thanks for asking, and thanks for your nice comment above. Thomas Weekly asks, what are your top 3 favorite steam and diesel locomotives? For steam, it's Grand Trunk Western 6325, Pure Marquette 1225, and Canadian National 3254. For diesels, it's the F40PH, SD75I, and P40 or P42DC. Do you like going to watch ships? I don't really dedicate time to watching ships like I would with like railfanning or whatever, but if I see one, I will take a picture of it. If there was another state you'd like to visit more than any other state, which would it be? Maine or Massachusetts? I'd love to visit the Northeast in general during fall and see all the colorful trees, historical landmarks, architecture, trains, the ocean, plus the hills and mountains. What state do you live in? I live in an oven mitt called Michigan, the Lower Peninsula to be specific. Have you ever been to Louisiana? I have not. Brayson asks, least favorite American steam locomotive? Honestly, I don't really think I have one. I mean, I don't really dislike or hate any steam locomotive. I mean, like I said, it's the case with the whole steam, diesel, electric thing. I'm just more interested in certain ones over others, I guess. Favorite Marysville episode? Probably Iron Ore's a bore. I think it turned out fairly decent. Favorite New York Central livery? I like the lightning stripe scheme. Dayton District Railfanner Productions asks, if you were to restore an American diesel that has been scrapped or retired, what would it be? The Alco PA or FA? Anything in Ohio you would like to railfan? Well, I've already been to Fostoria, but I thought like Deschler or Marion or just some more rural areas would be cool to check out and see like the old B&O CPL signals and stuff like that. I'd also like to check out some of the short lines in Ohio too. What is your favorite Western railroad? The Santa Fe. What advice can you give to a new YouTuber on this side of the site? I mean, I don't really think the advice I'm about to give applies just to train channels. I mean, I think it can be applied to just about anyone, really, who wants to start a YouTube channel or whatever. But I just say have fun and make what you want to make. I mean, it's your channel, so like you should have fun with it. Don't be afraid to like try new things, ask for help and feedback, look for inspirations or ideas, and basically just try to find something you think you're good at and that you'll have fun doing. One thing I'd also say is write down or note down your video ideas too. Ideas come to me at some of the oddest times frequently, and you don't really want to end up forgetting something or having a hard time remembering an idea you had. Also, if you list out your video ideas, like at least in my experience, and like get rid of the ones you've completed and uploaded, maybe like check them off or do whatever, it kind of feels like you've accomplished something, kind of like a checklist or whatever to-do list. So it's kind of like a nice motivating feeling because it feels like you've gotten something done. Another thing I'd say is just do the best you can, but don't overwork yourself or don't push yourself too hard either, because then you'll just end up in Burnout Valley in that case. In other words, take breaks if you need to. Don't force yourself to be creative if you're not really feeling it today or the next day or whenever. Last thing I'd say is just try to stay optimistic but patient at the same time, because growing your channel can take quite a bit of time, but I think it is possible for anyone in their hobby to just kind of be showcased on this site, and people to showcase their creative skills and just their passions and here on YouTube and get some kind of following or feedback from it. I mean, plus a lot of people have made a career out of it. I mean, it's basically their job. So really just find something that you think you're good at, take your time and be patient, don't overwork yourself, and just have fun with it, really. Can I have waffles for breakfast?
Nuh-uh, if I give you the waffles, I won't get any.
Link, would you like a waffle?
TheGreatBrit asks, favorite Beatle? Paul McCartney. Have you heard of the High Elves?
Have you heard of the High Elves?
Missy Donovan asks, favorite band besides the Beatles? Either Paul McCartney and Wings or Electric Light Orchestra. Some other ones I like though are like the Rolling Stones or Queen. Favorite game besides TF2? So I already listed some of the games I liked earlier, but my next favorite might have to be the original Half-Life. Why do you like Mario so much? Super Mario 64 was my first video game that I ever played on top of several Super Nintendo Mario titles, so basically just over time I ended up accumulating a sizable collection of Mario games. So in short, Mario's my favorite game franchise based on the nostalgia, and I just really enjoy platformer games. Nintendo definitely knows how to put out a good game or two. I've stolen the country's supply of F-40s.
Oh my god!
Who is Joe? Harrison La Time Traveler asks, train simulator or trains? Now I already covered this in a way earlier question, but just to recap, I prefer Dovetail Games' train simulator for being able to just kind of play it, do like quick drive stuff, career scenarios, standard scenarios, whatever, just drive in the locomotive cab for 30 minutes to an hour or even more, and just kind of have fun with it, because I actually like play the simulator, or play the game if you will. Trains with a Z, I prefer using it as a utility or kind of resource for videos, but I do prefer trains when it comes to kind of user modification and the route builder as well. I just find trains to be much more like user friendly. Do you play a Nintendo Switch? Since I noticed you liked a video of a Switch YouTuber who I am also subscribed to. I do. Some of my favorite Switch games are Super Mario Odyssey, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and Super Mario Maker 2. I mean, I do like several other Switch games, but I do plan on looking into getting some more games for my Switch since I don't really have too many. Any other plans for your Trains series? Granger Rail Tales Episode 2 is a work in progress, but I don't really have any release date on hand just yet. Joey the Blue A3 asks, should the 844 be put back into Greyhound livery? I would say for maybe like a year or two it would be cool, but I wouldn't say it should be in Greyhound like permanently. What is your favorite Trains series aside from any of yours? Probably San Juan Trainz and the Iron Horseman Chronicles. BL2 or SC44, which one looks better? I like the BL2 to be honest. I mean, I know a lot of people think it looks ugly, but to me, I think it's got character as it's just a dinky little branchline engine. I like it for that reason. G-Man asks, what's your favorite international steam locomotive? The Japanese National Railway C62. Do you think Penn Central could have worked if things were done differently? I think if things had been handled a bit better than they were at the time, I think it would have maybe lasted a little longer than it did. But given the time period it existed in, who really knows? It's hard to say. Like I said before, I'm not really an expert on this kind of stuff. Which do you prefer, Wii or Switch? Okay, so I have a lot of memories on the Nintendo Wii and my stockpile of games for it, plus the Virtual Console. With the Wii, you had great games like Super Paper Mario, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, both Super Mario Galaxy, Sonic Colors, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, Kirby's Epic Yarn, and the one everyone and their brothers probably played, Mario Kart Wii. The GameCube backwards compatibility was a huge bonus too, with like Super Mario Sunshine, Super Smash Bros. Melee, both Sonic Adventures, Kirby Air Ride, and like all the Mario Party games that were on the GameCube. Now with the Switch, I think its concept is awesome. You basically have a mobile HD console that you can literally fit in your pocket. The versatility and flexibility of the Joy-Cons too is just really cool, and you don't have to worry about not having a second controller if you start an impromptu game session with like a friend or something. Just pop off the Switch and here you go, let's play some Mario Kart, let's play some Super Smash Bros. Or whatever. You don't have to carry around another controller, and you don't have to fill up your backpack or bag or whatever you're carrying it in too. Plus with the Switch you have some great games like Super Mario Odyssey, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Pokemon Shield, Mario Maker 2, and the Switch's Virtual Console. Plus the wide variety of third-party games as well on the Nintendo eShop. I don't know honestly, it's a pretty tight matchup for me. I mean, I guess maybe the Switch? Maybe the Wii? I'll just say the Switch. Do you toast toast?
You know what they say, all toasters toast toast.
Well, that'll wrap it up for this 5th Q&A video. I answered about 50 comments, I'd say. Now I apologize if your question wasn't answered or I mispronounced your name or username, But don't worry, because there will always be another Q&A next year, or maybe even another Q&A if I feel like it during this year. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But nonetheless, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in another video.